Welcome back to MedTech Unplugged. I'm Jenny, and today we're doing something brand new. This is the very first episode of our Ask Me Anything series, or AMA for short. So every couple of weeks, I'm going to take some real questions from students, recent grads, and early career professionals who are trying to either break into MedTech or level up to that next role. And since this is our very first kickoff episode, I pulled together some of the most common questions that I've been asked over the years from college seniors, interns, and even people 1 to 3 years into their first MedTech job. So let's jump right in. What I'm asked probably most frequently really has to relate to getting your foot in the door. And the question goes like this. I've applied to so many MedTech jobs, but I never hear back. What are hiring managers actually looking for in entry-level candidates? I'm sure you, if you're listening to this right now, have probably had this question enter your brain at some point as you begin your MedTech career search. And, the answer by and large is managers want to see two things. One, that you understand the patient impact behind the role, and two, that you've shown curiosity and initiative. So let's just take a cover letter. Instead of a generic cover letter, try mentioning a specific therapy or product that company makes and why it excites you. And even if your background isn't engineering, you can still highlight transferable skills such as communication, lab work, data analysis, or teamwork on research projects. All of these can demonstrate those two skill sets, and it's what managers are looking for behind the crafted responses on your resumes. Another question I get very frequently is that I don't have any MedTech experience yet. How do I make my resume stand out? And this is probably highly relevant for today's audience. How can you really differentiate yourself from the crowd and from those with experience? And I'll tell you, hiring managers aren't always looking for someone who's got a lot of experience in the field, because what can sometimes come with that are bad habits to break. So don't feel like you're at a disadvantage if you don't have industry experience yet. Here's the thing, titles don't matter nearly as much as evidence of action does. So if you've supported, for example, a senior design project, or you've helped on a research study or shadowed in a hospital, talk about it in terms of impact. Talk about it in your interviews. Quantify your work and add a short summary at the top of your resume. Something that can highlight your goals, such as biomedical engineering grad, passionate about cardiovascular devices and clinical innovation. What you need to do is show the value in what you do on an everyday basis and bring that value to the surface. Another question that I get a lot has to do with internships. And it seems to be that there's this perception out there that internships are the only way to break into MedTech. And the answer to that is it's simply not true. So some people do start in adjacent roles like clinical research, Q&A, or manufacturing, and then pivot into more commercial roles or engineering tracks. Entry-level roles like field clinical specialists or associate sales reps are great starting points, and they're ideal for recent grads just coming out with their degrees. And of course, platforms like Navro are built for exactly that, to make these roles easier for you to find. So there's a lot of roles out there. Get digging and ask around. You need to do a little research on this one and really start to uncover the types of roles that are out there and what you'd be suitable for. And they don't have to begin with an internship. Pivoting a little bit, I do get a lot of questions as candidates start to kind of peel back the curtain a little bit and try to understand more about what is this crazy world of MedTech all about? What does it even encompass? And the short answer is everything from pharmaceuticals to biotech to medical devices, and certainly all the functional roles within that. So there's just so many areas in MedTech, robotics, heart rhythm, neurology, orthopedics. A lot of times people come to me and say, I don't really know where to figure out which one fits me. What should I look for? And the easiest answer I can tell them, and what I would say to all of you, is exposure is everything. Watch product videos, go to career fairs, follow companies on LinkedIn, and listen to what excites you most. If you've been a member of the Navro community, you're likely familiar with our MedTech Unplugged series, where we feature experts in various facets of the medtech industry. Oftentimes, these are practicing physicians that are sharing with you some really exciting technology or treatment or therapy. If there's something that catches your eye, investigate it a little more. If you're not sure, start learning, start getting exposed to what's out there. And that's how you're going to come across something that really lights your fire, whether it's because it's cool technology, whether it's because it's exciting and fast-paced. Maybe it just resonates with you because you've got personal experience with someone who's dealt with it before. But what you need to do is get as much education and as much exposure as you can. And keep in mind, your first role doesn't have to be your forever role. So don't put so much pressure on yourself that I've got to land it just right at the beginning. It's really just your entry point. Another question I get has to do with the corporate world itself. And I get very excited when someone asks this question because it shows me they're actually thinking beyond the job title. They're thinking of the global aspect of the environment in which they're going to be working. And the question has to do with, how does someone figure out if they would fit better in a startup role or startup company, or in a large, big established company such as an Abbott or a Boston Scientific? And it's an important question, right? Because culture and company values, company feel, how a company even functions and works and its resources do impact you on a day-to-day basis. Startups tend to move pretty quick and they expect flexibility. The benefits are you'll learn a ton quickly, but you're going to have to wear many hats. So if an unpredictable environment, or one in which you don't have all the resources at your fingertips and you need to be a little bit more resourceful, if you like that kind of environment, then you'll likely thrive in a startup. If you're the type of person that needs a little bit more guidance, a little bit more structure, a little bit more resources available to you, large companies offer a better fit for you. They'll typically have structure, mentorship, and generally a clear career path. So if you're just starting out, a large company is usually a great foundation, and they also offer a pretty extensive training program as well. Dovetailing off of that, this is the next question that I really get excited about when someone asks it. And what makes me giggle about this question is there's no answer for it. And let me explain why. The question is, what's a typical day like in medtech sales or a clinical support role? The short answer is there is none, because no 2 days are exactly the same. Clinical roles, and these are roles that involve patient care, they might include supporting procedures in the morning, maybe training staff later in the day, might involve follow-up in a clinic. It might involve training on a new facet of your device or part of the procedure. It may include follow-up with a physician on how a particular case went or some challenges they had, or sharing with them some new information that you have related to your product or your procedure. Sales reps work really hard to build relationships, manage inventory, and prep for cases. It's a very fast-paced and unpredictable, as well as you can imagine, exciting type of role. So one of the best things you can do to prepare yourself for even trying to understand what in the world a day in the life is like is to find someone that does this role in a myriad of different companies and ask them about it. Ask them, what is your job like? What do you do on a daily basis? What do you love about it? What do you hate about it? Just try to learn as much as you can from people that are actually in these roles to understand a little bit better about how does this appeal to me? Or honestly, how does it not appeal to me? And do your homework there. People often will ask, kind of after we have this discussion about what a day in the life is like, is it as stressful as people say? How do you avoid burnout? And it is an important question. It's a valid one. It can be intense. There can be early mornings involved, travel, last minute cases. I've been in a variety of different roles. Oftentimes I was on a pager and on call on weekends. But it's meaningful work. People don't go into this space, and really you shouldn't go into it if you don't have a strong motivating factor for why you want to go in, because burnout is real. And good managers in the space really try to encourage and guide their team to avoid that kind of burnout. The key is setting boundaries and setting them early. You've got to protect your time, and you've got to remember the purpose behind your job. So ask yourself right now, before you want to get into this, do I have a solid why? Now, maybe you're thinking, okay, this sounds great. I can handle the stress. I can handle the pressure. I want to get into this. But I don't know anyone in med tech. How do I even start networking without it feeling awkward? Because the concept itself seems easy. I mean, you know what you need to do. You need to make connections with people that are in the industry, but how do you even begin? And if your answer or what you're thinking to yourself is, well, I'm on LinkedIn, guys, I'm telling you right now, it's not enough. Being on LinkedIn is passive. That's passive. That's not true networking. So if you're new to us, I'm going to give you a tip that was shared from one of our recent webinars by BG George, who is head of global therapy development at Acarix. And he was really big on this idea of curiosity. Start with curiosity. So message people on LinkedIn asking to learn about their day-to-day. This is the informational interview that we touched on earlier. Now, don't mistake this for a job interview. You're not asking for a job. What you're asking for is insight. Stay connected with them afterwards. Build relationships over time. Most people love to talk about themselves and what they do. This is your chance to learn about it and get as much information as you can about these types of roles. And that typically will lead to a networking connection, additional contacts in the industry, and if nothing else, a mentor to bounce ideas off of, to bounce, goals and strategies off of as you're trying to get into this industry. Once you get in, another question I'm asked quite frequently is about pivoting. So how do I move? Let's say you start with one of these clinical specialist roles, which is a great entry-level position for someone just graduating. But you might have an interest in pursuing marketing or product management. How do you pivot and extend your career into one of those types of avenues? Well, you need to learn the business side first. So you need to learn market strategy, pricing, competition. And how are you going to do that? Well, volunteer for projects that cross different departments. You need to get your name out there and show that you can think beyond procedures into the strategic side of the business. Getting your name out there and getting it in front of other folks on these cross-functional teams is how you're going to start to get noticed, and how your work is going to start to be recognized out of your individual business silo. Well, now that you're in, why do people stay in medtech? It's a question that I'm asked a lot. Do people stay in it for decades? What keeps them going? Well, it's hard. It's hard work. You need to learn how to balance the travel aspect of the job, which is often there, with your personal life and with your family. And you've got to plan ahead. You've got to protect your weekends. You've got to make family time non-negotiable. Say yes to the important things, but don't overcommit. Balance is possible if you're intentional. And there's going to be times where you're really putting your foot on the gas and where you should be appropriately. And then you'll find times where it's okay to keep that pace, but just make sure the pace is a reasonable one. Maybe you're easing off just a little bit to manage what you can control and control what you can manage. So in terms of that question about long-term roles and long-term presence in the industry, it is incredibly fulfilling and it is possible. You've just got to make sure that you're not allowing yourself the burnout. And why did I stay in it for so long? Well, for me, it was the impact. Really seeing patients' lives improve is what kept me inspired. And I'm someone that loves learning. I love seeing what's new, what's exciting, and this type of technology never stops evolving. So if that's something you really enjoy, trust me, this industry will keep you interested for the long run. The last question I'll touch on is really taking a look at that long run. And the question is, what areas of medtech are going to take off in the next few years? And there's never been probably a more exciting time to enter the field than now. Digital health, robotics, structural heart, and minimally invasive therapies are all growing incredibly fast. Watch for wearable diagnostics and AI-driven monitoring. These are the next big frontiers. If you've been with us before, you know that we've shared this insight into the industry and how most sectors of it, if not all, are pivoting towards smaller devices, smarter devices, and more sophisticated devices. So all of these areas of medtech are going to be massive in the next few years. All right, well, that's our first Ask Me Anything. If one of these questions hit home, or if you have a new one for next time, I'd love to hear from you. Just email info@mynavro.com, or you can message me on Instagram or LinkedIn at Navro MedTech Recruiting. And remember, nothing's off limits, whether you're still in school, you're changing careers, or you're just trying to figure out what's next. We'll tackle it right here on MedTech Unplugged. Ask Me Anything. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.